Thank you for coming out. This is going to be the damn best afternoon you've had in a long time. This story I'm going to read is coming from a book called Punk Goes Horror, and it was essentially a bunch of writers were asked to make a story off of a punk song from one of their favorite bands. Okay. And what I ended up doing was Dead Kennedys. So does anybody here know what People's Park is or was?
Yeah.
All right, a few people know what that is. We're going to get a little bit of an education on this. The name of this is Let's Lynch the Landlord. A fleet of food trucks smashed the entrance to Berkeley's downtown police department, spewing tacos, hot dogs, and condiments as they disappeared through the gaping hole they created, where the sliding glass doors and metal detectors used to be. Who would have thought there'd be takeout during the apocalypse? Black smoke billowed out of the station as somewhere deep inside I heard a propane tank rupture. I gotta admit, this is some extreme shit for a Thursday morning, even for this town. My campsite is high in the Berkeley Hills, nestled beneath the Lawrence Hall of Science observation deck. Until recently, first-year students had brought their upper-middle-class parents here, taking the panoramic view that was almost as heart-stopping as their yearly tuition costs. If those parents knew that this guy, living out of an old sleeping bag, held the same master's degree in nuclear engineering that their kids were pursuing, they'd probably have thrown themselves off the fucking edge. Of course, it's been nearly 50 years since I graduated, and it's been almost 40 years since I emancipated myself from the bullshit and went off-grid. Berkeley was different then, man. I hardly recognize it now. However, from my vantage point on this hill, I can see the smoldering remains of the University Chancellor's Mansion, the crumbling City Hall, and several immolating police stations. So I have to say, things are looking up. Listen. This DIY system correction has been coming for a long time. It's no secret that the tech bros, the LLCs, and corporate landlords bought up entire neighborhoods in San Francisco and pushed out family businesses to make more cash. They gobbled up warehouses, sent artists and advocates packing, priced out working families, and gentrified downtown to cater to a select few. Landlords became as rich as dukes. And when that was just happening in San Francisco, you know, we punks, we abided it. But those greedy fuckers decided to bring their rigged game to Oakland, to my United Republic of Berkeley. And in doing so, they made deals with the biggest, baddest landlord baron of them all, the UC, Cal. You might believe UC Berkeley's reputation as the liberal capital of the world, but that just describes our students and our faculty. The institution was always about money, always about land. The countdown to the apocalypse. The countdown to the apocalypse started when the chancellor decided to settle an old score over a very public thorn in the university side, People's Park, an infamous parcel of land just slightly under 3 acres in size, but with an oversized reputation. It's a defiant, scuzzy monument to fuck you, I won't do what you say. I used to be a parkie myself, you know, a long-standing resident of People's Park before the morons attempted to take their kill shot. People's Park had been a battlefield from the very beginning. It was born from a botched eminent domain land grab by the UC that left it lying abandoned for over a year until a handful of activists planted trees and organized a community on the grounds. At which point the chancellor sent the Berkeley police to beat the shit out of them. The cops got more than they expected when 3,000 students and residents marched to the park to punch back. Sheriffs in riot gear bashed skulls with nightsticks, but the protesters stood up to themselves and set fire to police cruisers. The angry crowd swelled, and more people joined the carnage. Bricks and bottles rained down, and then the cops started firing shotguns into the crowd. Buckshot ripped through 19-year-olds and middle-aged neighbors alike. Blood was everywhere. People slipped on crimson puddles in the dirt. Before Bloody Thursday ended, 128 civilians had been hospitalized. All this over 3 acres of mud. You know what I think happened here? It had to have been all the blood, man. All the blood shed within the park must have consecrated this ground somehow. Decade after decade, fight after fight, charging this site until finally it just fucking erupted. We created a fucked up de facto community, a home for lost causes. People's Park was a good place to stand to make a last stand and fight back. Death or glory, motherfuckers. The beginning of the end, however, happened very quickly. The state Supreme Court gave in to the university's demands and handed them a legal right to build student housing on People's Park, just as long as UC Berkeley promised to include a facility for unhoused park residents. Yeah, right. On the night of the land deed transfer, I heard the spotlights electric quick before the beams landed upon the encampment. When the chancellor's berserkers arrived, they made as much noise as possible, as if trying to heighten our terror. Silhouettes in riot gear lined up at the park's edge, smacking their shields and batons, savoring our helplessness. Unintelligible rules which we had supposedly already broken. were shouted through bullhorns. The police line marched through our homes at a leisurely pace, swinging batons like scythes, harvesting crops. They ripped through the tents, shattered lawn chairs, tore apart backpacks, tossing our meager belongings into the night sky. Groggy parkies, awoken with a baton to the side, stumbled deeper into the darkness. Those on crutches struggled to stay ahead of the advancing squad. A wheelchair-bound woman was stuck in a rut. She started crying. I grabbed the handles and I dragged her chair backwards. I was aiming for the street. 2 cops advanced out on us fast, realized they'd get to me before we got to the street. So I said, fuck it. I figured I could take a few hits and get this woman to safety in public street lights before I went down. I kept my speed and I braced for that familiar kick of steel. And then a young dumb tweaker got between us, stood his ground, yelled at the troopers, so they shot him in the throat. The encampment was gone in minutes. In its place, 160 double-stacked storage containers surrounded People's Park by the next morning, creating an 18-foot-high perimeter of steel that stretched from Haight to Bounty to Dwight Way and then down to Telegraph Avenue. Security guards operated fortified checkpoints. Spotlights rimmed the top of the structure. Nobody was going to sneak into the home of free speech on their watch. They built the Berlin Wall in Berkeley, man, and somewhere Ronald Reagan was surely laughing his ass off. But the spirits of the dead weren't going to go quickly. Fuck going quietly. The night after the steel wall went up, residents on late-night dog walks reported seeing what looked like a group of skeletons wearing black hoodies and cargo pants, riding skateboards, jumping the steps at Sproul Plaza. No hoodies painting bones. It's not hoodies. Actual skeletons. And I gotta tell you, that's weird even by Berkeley standards. Like, what the fuck, right? A second bone crew was reportedly seen hopping the turnstiles at the Shattuck BART station, doing aerials and half-pipes into the subway terminal. More skeletons were spotted at Oakland's Lake Merritt, stealing a racing boat from the rowing club and paddling into the estuary. At the time, police departments had assumed these calls were all hoaxes. You know, they don't believe that anymore. I had to be at the start of that demolition of People's Park. I could not stay away. There was a modest crowd of protesters, but most of them were usual suspects. They're the same people who had been protesting shit for decades. They only showed up for the cameras, so I kind of tuned them out. Because of the wall of shipping containers, I could only hear what was happening. But I knew the park by memory, so I closed my eyes and followed the sound of the bulldozers tracking. I cringed as the wet splatter of community garden vegetables got crushed under vehicle treads. I heard the collapse of the basketball court where Jerry Rubin and I once played one-on-one to settle a political argument. I fucking won. The bulldozer moved on and invaded the small grove of trees. Those trees were planted by the homeless over many, many years. The bulldozer moved in and invaded them. As each tree fell, one at a time, executioner style, I remembered the face of the people who had planted them 50 fucking years ago. And suddenly drops of rain fell on my face. And I heard construction workers shouting at each other. When I opened my eyes, I saw a massive plume of water shooting into the sky. Apparently, one of the trees had taken root around a water main and broke it. I thought, one more fuck you. Construction was postponed and protesters got a short reprieve, but when the sun went down, punks entered the night. Across the Golden Gate Bridge into Marin, park rangers at Mount Tamalpais responded to what they assumed were poachers on one of the fire trails. They set up a roadblock when they saw a line of lights, possibly torches, quickly descending the mountain. The glow of fire intensified as the group drew closer. It wasn't torches. 24 mountain bikers flew down the steep trail at breakneck speed, riding old single-speed balloon tire Schwinns. Clunkers, just like the crazy Larkspur Canyon gang used to ride. Except these riders were skeletons, dressed in black denim battle vests, and their skulls were on fire. Rangers narrowly jumped from safety. Apartment dwellers across San Francisco called in noise complaints about the city's newly installed robo-taxis. Late at night, the vehicles abandoned their program routes, congregated in empty parking lots, and honked at each other as if having secret conversations. I'd always heard the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but I didn't think robo-taxis had become comrades in arms. Turns out they're high-tech indentured service just like the rest of us, treated dismissively by their privileged masters, but privy to their private conversations. And just like the Third Estate from the French Revolution, they were getting ready to spill some nobleman's blood. And that brings me to this morning, the morning of the apocalypse. It's almost dawn when I walk towards People's Park to claim my seat at the resumed execution. A lot more bystanders now. They skewed younger. Everybody likes circuses, I guess. I also noticed street people lived on Telegraph Avenue had assembled. Skate punks who I'd seen on the streets and older punks who I used to see playing at Ruthie's Inn. We fuck-ups, we misfits, we geeks, we show up for each other. The police had already formed a phalanx between the crowd and the structure. The demolition crew was at work before the sun rose over the Berkeley Hills, trying to get it done under the cover of darkness. We wouldn't let them. The younger protesters were live streaming from their phones. One of them had a drone, and he sent it high up above the wall to get a bird's eye view. Finally, he used for technology I could understand. I watched the video screen from over the kid's shoulder as the drone rose into position. It's a fucking gut punch. All the foliage was gone except for one tall redwood. The peace stage where Elders Cleaver, Abby Hoffman, and Angela Davis had once spoke was now dumpster rubble. There were pipes and rebar stacked where the basketball court used to be. An excavation shovel had been ready to knock the last tree down. A cherry picker raised a worker with a chainsaw to the top of the mortally wounded redwood. He looked like he relished his job, absorbing any booze that rose up in the crowd. He blew kisses. Fuck these motherfuckers right to the heart, Jack. And then every police walkie-talkie went off simultaneously. An emergency bulletin. Alerts pop up on smartphone after smartphone. One live streamer from the crowd gasped and showed her friend what was on her phone. It's a traffic helicopter lead, a live feed of the Bay Area Bridge. At least 100 robo-taxis had blocked a 30-yard expanse of both the upper and lower decks, tightly parked in alternating parallel and perpendicular rows, interlocked like automotive Jenga. The CHP smashed a car window only to find the car placed in park. Emergency brake on. No keys. No manual override. Dead fucking weight. They had a 155,000-pound clusterfuck on their hands. Suddenly, the ground under my feet rumbled. Earthquake? Everyone wobbled and bent their knees for balance. The guy in the cherry picker hung for dear life as everything swayed. And then, the quake stopped. A crowd of live steamers, police pumps, protesters, security guards, all held quiet for a moment. We waited. Nothing. A mutter of relief went through the crowd, and the guy in the cherry picker with the chainsaw laughed nervously. But then I felt a powerful crunch. A crunch deep down below my feet. I looked down at the drone pilot's phone screen. Through the drone feed, I saw the chainsaw guy, the cherry picker, the redwood, the splintered trees, the basketball court, all plummet into the earth like someone had hit a bullseye on a giant carnival water tank. The air was filled with the terrified screams of the demolitionists. A vast plume of dust, the size and shape of the park, shot into the sky. There was a loud metallic moan as the 160 storage containers leaned together, tumbled into a newly formed 2.8-acre chasm, dragging the security guards down along with them. What in the actual holy fuck just happened? Disaster sirens went off in the distance. Shrill emergency alert system tones blared from every phone, walkie-talkie, car radio sound system in the area. Suddenly, alarms timber on the radios warbled and distorted, like coming through a strangled larynx, until the signal glitched and cracked with static. The emergency tone cut off as if someone had just pulled the plug. Silence. We all stood like we were playing freeze tag. Then we heard the unmistakable crackling, fuzzy sound of a turntable needle gliding across the surface of a vinyl record. A distorted but steady guitar chord broke the silence. A voice replaced it. It was Joe Strummer. This is a public service announcement with guitar. The old punks and I looked at each other with confused recognition. What the fuck? Who would have thought the apocalypse would come with a mixtape? Another sound rose from the chasm before us. An uncanny noise. It reminded me of endless lines of dominoes clinking together as they toppled, as if an elaborate perpetual motion artwork were on exhibit in the Earth's core. As the noise got louder, it sounded more like thousands of bamboo wind chimes caught in a hurricane. It was the rattle of increasing violence. Made the hairs of my arms stand on end. Something was coming. We're going to stop there.